could we be given warning at the beginning of a programme if there's going to be anything about the Beatles, as all Beatle fans can make sure to listen, and have a chance to ring up other fans to make sure they are also listening.
Hi everybody, this is John here. This is Paul, George,
and Ringo.
And we're very happy to be on your program once again.
Welcome to episode 101 of your Beatles News Briefs podcast, hosted by Beatles news veteran Steve Marinucci. On this show, we'll feature an interview with Simon Weitzman, the director of the new film A Love Letter to the Beatles, which will be out on October 7th. The film is just what the title says, a look at why generations of fans love the Beatles so much. For those who didn't see our last Beatles News Briefs podcast that was only on YouTube, we're bringing you the audio of Ringo Starr's September 9th press conference, in which Ringo talks about the band, his artwork, and his new book, Beats and Threads. And the band talks about what it's like being in a band with Ringo Starr. Plus, we'll have some late-breaking news headlines. Now here's your host, Steve Marinucci.
Hi, everybody. We're back with what we think is another fun show. We'll start with the interview with Simon Weitzman, who you may remember we previously talked to on the show that featured Chris O'Dell. This new interview was a lot of fun. Here's my chat with Simon Weitzman. We're here with Simon Weitzman, who we've talked to before. It's good to see you again, Simon.
It's lovely to see you again, Steve.
You've been really busy, haven't you?
Yeah, you could say that. I mean, look at me, I'm only 23, so, you know. Yeah, very busy at the moment, a lot going on. Obviously, what we'll talk about today and a number of other things. As you know, Miss Odell's been out for a few months now.
You guys were at Beatlefest recently. That worked out.
She was at Beatlefest. I can get over for that. But yeah, it went fine. She showed the film and did several talks over there. And we've had some really lovely feedback on it from a lot of people. It's going down very well, obviously, with Beatle fans, but it's going down really well with a female audience, which is kind of what it was designed for, to be honest, Steve. And it's sort of multi-generational audience, which has been great. So we've had really lovely feedback from that. It's been really good.
Is there going to be any further distribution of that on disc or in theaters or any?
I believe it is available or going to be available on Blu-ray. And
it's been on DVD. I'm not sure that it's been on Blu-ray.
I think it will be on Blu-ray as well, as far as I know. But that is something, obviously, our distributor, which is Liverpool West Productions, are obviously in charge of that. So they'll be able to kind of fill everyone in on what the process is on that. But I mean, my job, Steve, is to make the films and hand them in. So
right. You know, and you've got a couple of other projects. You've got Real Love. Talk a little bit about Real Love.
Okay, so Real Love is a film about the history of International Beatle Week from sort of pre-inception in 1977 to kind of which I've had enormous help from. Obviously, I've done that in collaboration with the Cavern Club and Cavern City Tours, the company that owns them. And, you know, all of the people working there have been absolutely fantastic. And so I've had the most amazing help. Even, for example, for your listeners, you know, we have to do these things called cue sheets where we have to do all the music for everything that we do. Sometimes you're hearing things in the film or you're seeing things in the film that we only kind of see the audience for the way it was filmed by somebody else. There's a lad at the offices there called Clark Gilmore, who's the main booker for Cavern City Tours for all of the Beatles. And he can watch, he's like Jack White, you know, it's kind of quite extraordinary to watch him because he can literally see somebody with their hand on a chord, changing chord, and he goes, oh yeah, that's Rain. Literally within a second. You know, it's just like, it's an extraordinary talent. And the ones that he couldn't do, he would get a guitar and just kind of mimic the chords and go, oh yeah, that's this song, you know. So very, very clever. So so that film will be out we're hoping that'll be out next spring, all being well.
Who's going to be in that?
So that's kind of got a lot of the usual suspects, I suppose, but it's got a lot of really good bands in it. So there's a band called The Rolls in it. There's DeBow and Me, who are a duo female band. They are extraordinary as well. There's Beatles Complete. There's all of the people that are doing the Matthew Street Festival. on the sort of front that they do. So a lot of those acts as well. Julia Baird, obviously John's sister, and all the gang from the Cavern Club, Bill Heckle, who owns the place, Dave Jones. Dave hasn't done really many interviews over the last 10 years, so we were really pleased to get him on board. And John Keats, who kind of keeps the place running, Victoria McDermott, who again keeps the place running. So it's a lot of the people behind the scenes as well. And there's Keith Badman's in it as well, who's brilliant.
Yes, he is. I've never met him, but we've had contact with each other. He's great.
He
He's
is a brilliant,
fantastic.
he's got an incredible memory for things as well.
His books are amazing, and I'm not saying that because my names are mentioned in it, but they're fantastic. You've also got the film about Shannon McDonald coming.
Yes, Shannon's film. Well, hopefully, there's a lot of work going on, and part of what you have to do with all of these films is you have to do all the legal work around them. So we're in a queue, so we're hoping that film will be out this year. But I mean, what the worst case scenario is it comes out early next year, but hopefully it'll be this year. But that's a really fascinating film. Her life story is, I don't think it's what anyone expects. It's really quite harrowing. Her
Mhm.
upbringing was really difficult, and she had quite a dramatic time as a youngster. And one of the things that's great about it is that we see her work take form. So a Bob Ross thing where you start with nothing on a canvas, and by the end of the film, she's created this thing that's completely photorealistic.
That's one thing that's been really amazing about her work is how realistic those pictures look. I mean, she really does a marvelous job. And she's also close friends with Rick Nielsen of
That's right.
Cheap Trick. And
That's
she's done the artwork for some of his guitars, and she's talked about that a lot too. Does she talk about that in the movie too?
She talks quite a lot about Rick in the film. He's very much a Cheap Tricks, and her sort of adoration for Rick and the fact they've managed to work together. She talks about Sylvester Stallone. She talks about a number of people that she's worked with over the years. We'd been talking probably for a couple of years previously about doing something together about her life. And then, of course, in 2023, all of her primary work was burnt in the fire in Maui. And, as a filmmaker, you kind of look at the tragedy of the loss of that kind of work. Being an artist like you and I do a lot of artwork. So the loss of that and the grief of that really was the tipping point for us thinking, okay, let's make the film, because how do you come back from that loss?
We're gonna have to talk about that one.
Yeah,
Definitely get her
very interesting.
on here and talk about that. I would love to. I've communicated. I've never met her. I've wanted to meet her when I've gone to Beatle Fest. She hasn't been there, and I'm not. I don't know that we'll ever do that, but I would love to talk to her this way, and maybe we can do something with that down the road.
I'm sure so, because she is a real character, and she's lovely,
I
but
know.
become a very, very close friend. And she's really funny as well. She's a very humorous person, and I'm not sure that people, when she's working, you don't kind of get that impression. She's in the zone. But away from that, she's got a really great sort of sense of humor and things. So she's funny and very sort of self-aware in that sort of sense.
She's
So
also multi-talented because
an incredible
she's
guitarist.
she's put pictures of herself playing, and I think she's actually posted some videos of that. And yeah, I mean, she's incredible. Anyway, any other projects you got coming that you want to?
Yes. So the only other one that is really important, which is one that I've produced for a director called Chris Purcell, and that is Evolver 62, which is the extended film version of Mark Lewison's 62 theatre show. And that will be out, I think, in February next year. Filmed a multi-camera shoot, which sounds very grand, to be honest, Steve. It wasn't. It was just like, how many of us can turn up with a camera for 2 days? But we shot it really well. Liverpool West very kindly came in and said they wanted to help us finish it. We managed to take Mark to Liverpool, London, to explain a lot of the things that he does on stage so that we get him out of the theatre. So it's not just a theatre reproduction of his show. It goes on location to various different places. And that was a lot of fun to make. And of course, Mark's extraordinary. He's an extraordinary character with this extraordinary mind of knowledge that I could only ever wish to have a slice of.
You and me both. I mean, yeah, and that's going to be very exciting because the interest in his book and the rest, the other books, that he's working on is just incredible, and everybody is really excited about those. So yeah, that would be really nice to see.
And
But
he's the most amazing presenter as well. He goes on stage and he does 2 hours. And, I wouldn't remember the first thing, to be honest, Steve. He just remembers these things. He just plucks these things out the air so naturally in the show. But yeah, it's funny. And again, he's got a great sense of humor and stage show. So that comes across very well in the film. So, and that's been directed by a friend of mine called Chris Purcell. I sort of took the producer range on it. And so that's fun. It's a nice film. Hopefully people enjoy that. And they'll also learn a few things about their journey in 1962 that maybe, I mean, people like yourself probably do know, but a lot of fans out there probably won't know some of the details of what happened that year.
I had the pleasure of interviewing him in San Francisco when Tune In came out, and that was an incredible experience to be able to talk to him and get some of his views on stuff. It was very interesting. And there was a lot of interaction from the audience, and it was just really incredible. It was really exciting for me to be able to do that. Anyway, we are here to talk about your new film called A Love Letter to the Beatles. I found out about this because it was listed on IMDb, but I found it on Fandango at Home, which I don't know if you guys have that in England. They sell and rent videos, and they listed under their coming attractions, and they had the trailer there. I was going, wow, what's this? And
Mhm.
it was very exciting to learn that you were involved with this. So tell me what the beginnings of this was and how it got started. I mean, you've got an incredible cast here. You've got Pete Best, which is fantastic. You got Billy J. Kramer, you got Lawrence Juber, you got Julia Baird, you got Bob Harris, you got the Quarrymen, you have Richard Porter, you got Shannon, you got Mark Lapidus, you got Angie McCartney, you got Vivek Tiwari, you got Black Rabbit, you got a very incredible, diverse cast. What was the genesis of this?
Okay. So the whole project started in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually still producing books with a really close friend of mine, Paul Skellett. So we were doing Beatle books at the time.
You do.
So we did the Eight Arms to Hold You book, which was the behind the scenes of Help, uh,
Okay.
was which we got Richard Lester helped us out on that. He was brilliant.
Okay.
Helped us out on that one. And then we did another one about All You Need Is Love and the satellite show, the communication show.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
our
remember. I remember those.
that, and we got some help from the BBC from a lady called Angela Baird, Ballard, and that was kind of good fun. And then we also produced a 3D image set of from some of the Beatles shows because they were never filmed in stereograph or in 3D. So we took it upon ourselves to do that stupidly, which took us 15 months to work out how to do it. And then bizarrely, we kind of one of the first things that we had come together on, Paul and myself, was a big golf book called The Bible of Golf. And as a result of that, we were commissioned to work for Loch Lomond to do their book. As part of that, I was standing on the stairs and we'd been to a lot of these fests. So I'd been to a lot of the fests with the books. And I'm an only child, have virtually no family, very small family, tiny family. And, you kind of wonder where you're ever going to fit in. So for me, it was a revelation to go along. Paul and I went to these shows where we were presenting a book. Nobody knew who we were. And
Right.
we just thought, oh, nobody's going to like us. They're all going to hate us. Sort of typical British low kind of self-esteem. And we were welcomed in with open arms at the fest in Chicago. And from there, we started going to Liverpool and to New York, and I sort of really felt I fitted in with the people there, with the fans, and felt that they were kind of like a family. And I was standing on the stairs at Loch Lomond in the absolute pissing rain, as they call it over here, and thinking, oh, you know what, I really want to get back to doing some filming, and I'd like to do a short film about these amazing fans who frequent these festivals. It kind of feels like to me that they're the ones that keep this all going. They're the ones that kind of keep this alive.
Right.
And so I kind of put a flag in the ground. I'm going to make the short film. and I'm going to go to a couple of the events and got some of my, we all rallied around, a few of my friends rallied around and got me on a plane to America and a camera. And it was really small. It was meant to be like a 15, 20-minute film. And to be honest with you, I just fell down the rabbit hole with it. And within a year and a half, I'd filmed around about 30 or 40 hours of it. And in that process, you meet a lot of people and you get to know them much better. And then that opens up a world of other people to you. And you slowly start to kind of creep into that world where you can film a lot more things. I was able to then get involved with the Cavern Club. So they were able to get me on stage with the bootleg Beatles at the Philharmonic. So it sort of just started to mushroom out. And then the idea was to really create this sort of 70, 80-minute film. It's ended up being flat on 2 hours in the end. And I have to say that even though I'm very pleased with how the film's turned out, we shot 200 hours plus of this. There is a lot of material that didn't make it to the film. So, one of the other projects that I'm interested in, which I'm talking with our friend Ken Womack about, is when there is eventually some kind of educational center, that a lot of this material will be reutilized within the educational center. But for now, we have this wonderful, well, hopefully wonderful 2 hour film that is really, the only way that we ever got it going was to crowdfund it. So given that I had some kind of track record with books, we put together a Pledge Music. It was Pledge Music. We put together a crowdfund and we raised quite a bit of money. But unfortunately, and some of your listeners will probably remember this, Pledge Music then suddenly went bust.
Okay.
Only reason I knew this is because completely out of the blue, and I'd never spoken to him before, Neil Innes phoned me and said, I'm doing a project with Pledge Music. I can see that you're doing something similar. You're doing something for the sort of Beatle related project. I'm trying to get the money out of my account. There's nothing there. And it turned out that they'd gone bust and kind of run away, So I think
You lost all that money that you had raised with them?
as far as we know, lost all the money and the fans
Oh
lost all the
my.
money. So me and my friends made a pledge, literally a pledge at that point, that we would get it re-going again. And if we did get it going, we'd manage to get the list of what people were due, their rewards and things like DVDs and that kind of stuff, that we would honor it, when we finally finished the project. So eventually we went back and relaunched on Indiegogo and very specifically said to people that had joined us the first time, you don't need to do anything, we will just cover this. But a lot of people knew what had happened, so they kind of pledged again, on Indiegogo, which was really fantastic.
Wow.
It showed
That's
some real kind of family sort of love, for the project. So at that point, we were able to really complete it. And it's taken a very long time. We've had also, COVID, of course, happened in the middle of it,
right.
And I lost my dad right at the beginning of it, and other family members were taken ill. And so I had quite a big sort of extended kind of area in that where I had to kind of look after things, but eventually kind of got it all going. And then, of course, you have to put it all through legal, don't you? So we found some fantastic lawyers who have been really great and very helpful. But that whole process, again, takes a year. And then we've been incredibly, I was incredibly lucky because I reached out to Twickenham Film Studios because I know that they do some incredible work with sound and said, look, would you help us with the sound? And they were brilliant. They really liked the project. They really understood where we were with it. And they took on to complete the sound for us. And we got an old friend of mine called Gwyn Evans, who is really one of the best picture graders on the planet, really. He's previously worked for many years with Paul McCartney and done a lot of his work. So he and I go back to when I was 19 and I was doing music videos and promos and working with other bands. So his work on it is beautiful. Twickenham Film Studios audio work has been exceptional. We've ended up with what is really essentially a little tiny sort of fan film that's got a 5.1 surround stereo mix on it, which justifies all these wonderful bands and musicians that are in the film. It kind of gives them a really good voice and sort of felt it was something that I really wanted as a group of fans, because I consider myself more of a curator than a director of this project. I just wanted the people that had put their hard-earned money into buying their DVD and their Blu-rays and whatever, to recognize that this is something that represents all of us as fans. Come on and say, well, we're making it, hopefully it will make really huge money and do this and that, but that's not the point. That's never been the point. The point of this is to create a film that we as Beatles fans over the generations just recognize completely. So
okay.
yeah, going back to where we were, the aim of this has always been to deliver something that the fans are proud of, and that represents the fans and our love for the band and our love for the way in which they've changed our lives, and also to kind of show how the fan community have kept it all alive, and going over the
Hmm.
years. And that's been extremely important because we forget a lot of the time that whenever something comes, the fans pass this on generationally to other fans and around the world. And the thing that was amazing for us was, and for me, was all these people in different parts of the world and how much it means to them. And, people that don't even speak English, it's been their way of learning English. It's an amazing thing. And, we've been blessed with a lot of really fantastic people in the film who have given their time and being very patient. This is a project that's, as I sort of jokingly say, this is a film that's taken almost as long as the Beatles' entire career, but achieved so much less, is the kind of funny tagline for it. But it's true, it's taken about 8 years to put this together. And, you're continually going back to people that may have contributed in year one and year two and saying, when you did this in 2018, have you got this? Or is there something else you can give us? And they've been all fantastic. Everyone's been absolutely amazing. So yeah, that's
But
kind of where we're at.
one thing you brought up was going to Beatle Fest, and you probably did something in England at Beatles Week. I'm just curious, is there a difference between the fans in England and America that you've noticed?
That's a very good question, actually. And I would say possibly in the UK that there is maybe more of a multi-generational fan base. If you go to Beatle Week, there are people from all around the world, and there are lots of young people. You've got bands like Beatles Complete that are now the house resident band at like 18, 19 with these kids. And a
Hmm.
lot of bands. So there's a lot of young people doing a lot of great things. And of course, you've got a young fan base here. I think in America, there is this incredible fan base. And again, it is
Right.
multi-generational. I think when you go to the fest, it is predominantly an American audience, and I guess that's because
It is
sense
American.
for people around the world to get there. And also with the Liverpool thing, it is one of these kind of things where it's a bucket list, isn't it? You got to go to Liverpool to see a place where they were born and grew up.
Right.
So I think the UK thing is always kind of, there's always a much more sort of multi-global representation of fans, I think, in the UK to show that. But I mean, overall, no, in temperament and type. And one of the great things that I think, we kind of have to mention it at the moment is that if you go into a bar or restaurant and you meet a group of people and you descend into politics, then it can get quite out of hand, particularly now. It's very diverse kind of range of thoughts on what the political landscape looks like. One of the great things about going to the fest in America and going to Beatle Week here and all the other places around the world is that goes out the window. Politics do not matter. And when you get back to the base of people being friends with their friends, that is not an element. And I think that's an amazing thing that this particular group of fans are able to put that to one side, and the uniqueness of what that music means and the uniqueness of what the lyrics and some of the things within the songs mean. I think that's an extraordinary thing. And I don't, you sort of think if you could get all the people that worry about politics into a room where they're all just enjoying Beatles music, then the world would be about, it would probably get a lot of things sorted out much quicker as well.
Do you think the loyalty of the fans in America and England is different? Do you think, and what I'm thinking about is the fact that because the Beatles are British, that the British fans are more, I don't know how to say it. Well, I mean, a good example of that is the Pete Best situation, where there are still a good section of fans in England that are very loyal to Pete, whereas in America, more of the fans are because Pete wasn't a part of the Beatles when the Beatles first came over to America. Is there a more fervent loyalty, or does it differ between the two countries?
That's down basically to where people pick it up. I mean, obviously, one of my very close friends is Debbie Greenberg, who's, her family ran the Cavern Club for years. And of course, she's the only person that's seen them play 292 times at the Cavern.
Wow.
So she remembers the whole kind of, Pete forever, Ringo never, evening when, of course, Ringo started. But I think it's interesting, really, isn't it? Because I think there's always been that, because without sort of sounding sort of crass about it, that, for a lot of people, I think in America, the arrival of them in America in 64 was the time where it kind of begins for a lot of Americans' love
Right,
affair with them,
right,
and a lot of people, obviously, people knew about them before. I think for people over here, because they knew them back in Hamburg or when they were coming out of Hamburg, remember when they came back to the club, people thought they were a German band,
right.
been in Hamburg for all those years.
Hmm.
So I think the knowledge over here goes back to the meeting in the late 50s and Walton Fate and, going to Hamburg and coming here and then going to America. And so I think the Pete Best thing has always been kind of more in the public kind of domain here as something that people remember. And, he's only just retired from playing in the last, what, 6 months or something.
Yeah, right.
And so, his career has gone on a greatly a long time. And of course, with his brother Roe, they've set up this incredible museum in Matthew Street, the Liverpool Beatles Museum, which is just brilliant and amazing. So I think he's still, if you're in Liverpool, Pete Best's name is on everyone's lips over there. He's still very, very important to the whole story, of course. But a great deal of difference between fans around the world. I talked to my friends at the Rio Brothers, and they're down in the Philippines, and you talk to them and guys from their late teens to early 30s, and you're always having this very kind of similar conversation with people in different places around the world. Great about it, and friends that I have in Brazil and Argentina and around Europe. So I think it's just this incredibly unique set of people, and it would be very difficult to make a similar film about another band. I think the only one that probably you would be able to do that with would be possibly either the Stones or Queen.
Right.
Again, the fan base is quite different with both of those bands to this. It's completely different. It's kind of, as Trona said in the film, the Beatles are the religion of music. A lot of people, when they come to Liverpool, have that kind of quite sort of pilgrim religious experience with it all, and so I think that's the only kind of advantage that maybe fans have over here is it's much more on the doorstep than it is obviously in the US. But fan-wise, generationally, you can sit down with somebody that's as old or 85 or 95 and have a brilliant experience, sharing stories.
I always find it really heartening when you're out somewhere and you see a younger kid wearing a Beatles shirt. That always really makes me happy. And I mean, what do you see as far as, the film is a multi-generational story. What do you see that the younger generation is picking up? The current generation, what do you see them
Very good
picking?
question. I think there's several different answers to that. I think one of the things that I'm sort of finding is really interesting is that you get a group of people who look at the way that the world was. The 60s were a very hopeful, it was a very hopeful decade in many ways. A lot of wars and things going on, don't get me wrong, but it was seen as a much more hopeful, progressive generation. A lot of people look back to that and sort of wonder what it must have been like to be around in that time and the freedom that people kind of felt that they had moving forward there. So I think a lot of the younger people look at that aspect of freedom and knowledge and just kind of getting to know the music. I think from a younger person's point of view, it's still the songwriting, always the songwriting and the way that those songs came out. So I think if you listen to a lot of bands that are coming around now, we've gone through different cycles in the 80s and 90s, went through a lot of synthesizer music, and then we sort of came back
Right.
to guitars. But they've all come, I used to know the lads in Depeche Mode pretty well. They're all massive Beatles fans. Same with Duran Duran, Simon, they're all huge Beatles fans, massive Beatles fans, And then look at
I'm thinking of is it Echo and the Bunnymen that were also big Beatles?
yeah, yeah, Ian McCulloch, and obviously from there anyway. But
Right.
again, it's this vast canvas where it's not just Beatles fans. You look at Motorhead and you look at Ozzy Osbourne, the
Who all these quotes about Ozzy Osbourne loving John Lennon and knowing John Lennon and everything that came out
yeah,
after he passed.
you look down that chain as well. So you look at fans of Motorhead that go down to their teens, fans of Ozzy Osbourne that go down to their teens. All of these bands that have a very different musical landscape
Mm.
to most of what the Beatles did. But actually, if you asked Lemmy and you asked Ozzy, would say, well, they always did say, that the Beatles were a huge part of that learning curve. And then if you look at, I mean, the song that always does my head in is Helter Skelter. Skelter to come out of a band that then did sort of Eleanor Rigby, Please Please Me. Helter Skelter has got to be kind of like the blueprint to all heavy rock that's ever followed. And it was really interesting because I was watching Jimi Hendrix Electric Church film, which is great, great documentary.
I believe I've seen that. It's been a while, but I believe I've seen that.
Yeah, it's very good. I mean, it's a weird combination of bits of documentary and then mostly just,
Hmm.
but you look at where he's taking off from in 68, 69 in some of those things, and the influences are all merged into something. Helter Skelter is heavy rock, heavy duty sound that I think just made young people at that point who were taking up music really quite fascinated by what they could do with guitars and a wall of sound at that point. You look at bands now, you look through Nirvana, Cobain, a huge fan. It's continued through the Foo Fighters, hasn't it? And
Right.
so
Yeah, I
all of
mean
the
Dave Grohl
well,
is a big Paul, has played with Paul. They're very close
it's
friends.
so, I mean, I think you've always seen these generational artists. There's a Scottish singer at the moment, this young lad who sort of is just huge at the moment. Well, Ed Sheeran, of course, but there's another one whose name has completely gone from my lips. Lewis Capaldi. So
Okay.
Lewis Capaldi, and you look at Lewis Capaldi's work now and what he's doing in his voice range. And the similarity to some of the ways in which he writes to Paul McCartney is extraordinary, probably without him even really thinking about it. But, you listen to some of, particularly Lewis Capaldi's new work, maybe over the last year or so, and it's just, there's obvious kind of hints back to early Beatles and particularly
Right.
Paul kind of canon of work. So I think this is always happening, and I think it just regenerates. They're kind of like, I always say this about the bootleg Beatles because the way they had to restructure the way they, the band every so often to put new people into it, that, the bootlegs are kind of like the Time Lords of the Beatles because they've been going for 45, 46 years. But
Right.
the Beatles themselves are kind of like Time Lords, aren't they? So every generation picks this up, and there's something from it that they will take forward into their music, and it goes around and around and around. I mean, Rivers, who's from Weezer, I used to know Rivers quite well, and the Weezer group guy. I mean, and again, very kind of like sort of like that indie kind of rock sound, but massively influenced in many ways by another great bands of that time. So I think the younger generations will always, as other people have said numerous times, they are the Mozarts and Tchaikovskys and sort of Beethovens of our era. The thing that's amazed me, and I'm sure amazes you, Steve, is baby midway through their career. But, we've been fortunate enough to live through this with these people and be part of it. It's this kind of like we've been part of this generation that's been lucky enough to grow up with the Beatles. And so we're kind of all preachers in our own right to pass that on to the next generation. If you've got 200 and something songs everyone's going to know well over 100 of them. And so there's this massive pool of incredible musical talent for people to pick something out of and take in their own direction. I think that's what is the great thing about this music, particularly with some of the younger bands coming out now, is you can hear the influence in the bands now, but there's always something that goes back to that sort of sound, somewhere.
So, did you get any assistance from Apple on this at all?
Well, right at the beginning of it, I actually phoned them. It was way back in 2017. So I phoned up Apple, probably quite naively, and said, I'm going to be making this film.
Oh, I've heard stories like that before, and they don't always end very well.
No, well, I mean, I think I've tried to stay within the rules of what I was told on the phone calls. They don't write things down. So, on the phone call, I was just said, don't copy things, don't do things like this. So there probably was around about 20, 25 seconds of things not to do, which I wrote down and I adhered to. Nothing that we do within the film is, it's all very positive, It's all about love and it's all about what it's meant to the people. One of the things I should have said with that sort of thing with generations is that one of the things that I think the Beatles do in a way that other bands don't do is the inclusiveness. There's incredible inclusiveness. So you can be, for me, I didn't really have much of a family, so it gave me a family. For other people who may be less fortunate in terms of physical or mental impairment, given them a family as well. And it's given everyone this kind of like this group of people that are very supportive of each other. And I think that's the most unique thing that's come of all of the fandom from it. And I think, going back to what you were saying about Apple, they've got a new lad in town, haven't they? They've got Tom, this lad Tom that's come in. My hope is that they will gradually, as far as they can, open some of the doors and that some of the younger generations, far younger than my generation, will be able to maybe come along with ideas that they'll be able to take forward and help them with. So I see the future of Apple hopefully as being a more sort of open, helpful organization because I genuinely think they have to be. I think they have
Yeah,
to,
they really do. I mean,
you know.
this isn't 1964 anymore, and they know that.
Yeah,
And
I think they do. And I think there's a lot of work in the background. Remember that Apple, people sort of think of Apple as being this massive corporate machine. It's really not. It's not that many people involved in it. And I think, they are doing things and have done things recently that are starting to kind of open that door a little bit more for people. So I think, you know, they have to do it in a way because they have to understand that, there will always be creative people that want to do something that isn't going against them. This is the whole point. Everyone that does things generally 99% of the time are doing things that are very positive and they want
right.
to extend this fantastic band and group out to other generations and to other people, So I think hopefully in the future that Apple will, hold hands with a lot more people that are just genuinely wanting to kind of do something positive to keep it all going, really.
What kind of, just give me an indication, maybe list some of the bands, the diverse bands that you're going to feature in the movie.
Oh, okay. So,
What kind of music are people going to hear in the movie?
well, there's going to be all sorts of things in the film. I mean, there's the sort of more conventional tribute acts who are just amazing, So you've got the Fab Four, the bootleg Beatles, and then obviously the house bands at the Cavern Club and various others that kind of do kind of like a real sort of moment in time style thing. Again, you look at the bootlegs and the Fab Four, and they are incredible. They just put on amazing shows, and you can be in those shows and you forget where you are. They are that good at what they do.
I've seen the Fab Four a couple of times, including a once at Disneyland, which was
Yeah,
really cool. I have
yeah.
not, I've heard the bootleg Beatles. I may have seen a video of the bootleg Beatles. You mentioned, I'm not trying to get on, for the people in America that aren't fully aware of the bootleg Beatles, you were saying about the evolution of the group over the years. What's the thing with them?
They got going in like 1980, sure. I mean, literally, they were starting to go when John was assassinated and was killed, and
Hmm.
so at the time, they were like, "Oh God, what do we do? Do we continue this?" But they decided that the Beatles were beyond the people; it was about the music, so they continued doing it, and they've been going for 45 years. They've
Right.
changed their setup a few times, obviously, to keep it relevant to an audience. But they do extraordinary shows, and their dedication to getting the mannerisms, the sound of the voice, and all the patter between the songs right. Though it's not scripted, a lot of the time it's just like as it comes out. But they're all particularly brilliant at doing this. And I was lucky enough, my mum and dad went to see the show before my dad died. They said they were totally transported back to the early 60s. You've got this younger group of people watching, thinking, wow, this must have been amazing. And where can we find out more about them? The great thing about people like the Fab Four and the Bootlegs and even the Cavern Club house band is people listen to that and they go out looking for the records. It does no harm to Apple and the genuine band have these bands out there doing that and paying tribute. Then again, you get amazing bands like the Rio Brothers in the Philippines who are very young, quite often just, they don't dress up as the Beatles or anything. Considering they don't speak very much English, actually can sound more like the Beatles than the Beatles do. I mean, at times at the end of, say, for instance, Real Love, with the film that will be out next year, there's Real Love that they do at the end of that track. And, some people have come back and gone, oh, I haven't heard that version of the Beatles doing that. And they're that good. Their voices are
Wow.
brilliant. But you got fantastic bands like Mona Lisa Twins, who are UK-based twins, these two girls that are fantastic. Matrona, who again are a group of Irish girls, two Irish girls in their band, and they are extraordinary as well. And they've gone on to become quite a big sort of rock group since we started doing this. So we filmed them like 4 years ago. They've gone on to fill stadiums now.
Hmm.
They're huge, and but there's loads. There's a wonderful section with the Quarrymen that's in there as well, and the Pete Bass Band is in it. Lawrence Juba does a fantastic thing, and then there's Black Rabbit. We've got Black Rabbit, who are an incredible band. These two twin brothers from New York who are now in a band with Lenny Kravitz. A lot of these people, they were doing these things and they've gone on to, greater things, but they're all
Is that kind of an R&B thing with Black Rabbit?
Black Rabbit. No, they're rock. They're full on heavy rock kind of band. These two brothers are amazing. And of course, Lenny Kravitz had been tracking them for like 6, 7 years, while they've
Right.
been doing all this Beatles stuff. And so he's kind of taken them on. So there's the Black Ties, who are a fantastic young band doing Beatle tracks. Again, Debbie Greenberg, who saw the original Beatles play 292 times, said that they're almost the closest she can remember to that raw
Oh my
sound
God.
right at the beginning. And that's a fantastic accolade for a band like the Black. They're really nice people as well. I mean, they're all nice people. Everyone that we've dealt with has been absolutely fantastic. And there's a lot of bands, a lot of and artists that didn't even make it into the films that we've got incredible performances with. We have performances in the film with the Analogs. The Analogs now are no longer going. They've finished their kind of canon of work they wanted to do, but they're incredible.
Really?
An amazing experience that they've managed to do live versions of these incredible albums that were never done live. So the analogs are in there and the whole armful of different types of music all the way through the film and different takes on it and different representations of it.
What would be some of the other genres that are covered in the?
Well, I think there are sort of more folky versions, there are rock versions, there are acoustic piano versions, so all sorts of different versions. There's a few country versions in there. There's all sorts of different ways that these records and sounds have been transformed.
Wow. This sounds really, really exciting. It's coming out October 7th,
It's
correct?
out on October 7th, and on the day it comes out, I'm actually filming with the Bootleg Beatles at the Royal Albert Hall. So it's kind of
Okay.
fun. They've asked me to do a couple of things there, so I'll be there on that day. And then, of course, the surrounding kind of things really probably start the big wheel running on promotional around the 9th. Of course, because the 9th would be the
With
ideal
the,
to do. So yeah, I'm excited to see what people make of it. It's been a long time coming. To be honest, I'm particularly excited for the folks that supported us, funded us with their contributions. We couldn't have done it without that. We wouldn't be sitting here, you and I wouldn't be sitting here talking if it wasn't for everyone, including yourself, who's been involved in the background on this. And this is a joint effort. We've had a fantastic poster made for this, by the way. Eric Cash has done an incredible graphic for the film parts that Liverpool West are doing, and Eric's an incredible artist. We've had an artist called Emily Solanas, and she is a protege artist for Tony Booth, who did all the original posters for the Cavern Club. And
okay.
so she's done a poster for us, and of course the line on it is a fan for fans, made by fans, and that's what we are.
Is the Eric Cash poster the one that's on IMDb?
I think so, yes, it probably
Okay.
is.
Okay.
Um, and then Emily's poster will be for all the fans that have kind of supported our mission
Oh,
along
okay.
the way. But her work is so close to what Tony was producing in the 60s for these classic, fantastic posters. But it's this incredible group effort. And they're probably, Real Love is a very similar type of film. It follows a similar style. It looks quite similar to what we're doing with A Love Letter to the Beatles, but I don't think anyone would be insane enough to have another go at doing what we've tried to do. It's been a real kind of labor of love, and it's been an enormous amount of work. And, there's been a lot of heartache along the way because we've had to kind of deal with a lot of things, including COVID, in the
Right.
middle of it. And, the loss of certain people along the way to illness and things like that. One of the things that I should say is that Keith McCallum, who started this film with me, who was my big, died a few years ago, died of cancer a few years ago. And so, this film's as much for him as anyone else. But
Right. Right.
one of the things that's really nice at the end of the film, by the way, just before we finish, is that when we were finishing up with crowdfunding, we asked everyone, if there was somebody that they'd lost in COVID or if they'd lost somebody that was important to them over the years. So there is this really nice bit at the end of the film, which is in memory of all these people that,
Oh,
people have lost. It's lovely. And a lot of names that people will recognize, of course, along the way. So it's this incredible global fan effort that's led to this film even existing. So I'm incredibly and eternally grateful to you, the fans, for helping us promote it because it's such a lovely thing and it should be something joyous that people sit down and see themselves in it. But I think everyone will see something of themselves in this film.
okay. I know it'll be on Fandango at home because I've seen it listed there. Where else will people be able to get it? Will it be on disc as of October 7th or
I don't know, and we would have to find out from Liverpool West. They'll have to give us some information on that. But it will be,
okay.
as far as I know, it will be on Amazon Prime.
On Amazon Prime? Okay, because I looked there today and they didn't have an advanced listing of it, but okay.
Okay. As far as I know, it will be on Amazon.
Like Miss Odell was there too, yeah.
Yeah. As far as I know, Miss Odell will be out in the same territories and the same channels.
Will also be available on disc, although maybe not right away.
I hope so. Yeah, at some point. That's something that I think is still kind of in the works. But yes, I'm sure it will be because lots of people have still got DVDs and Blu-rays and all
Right,
that. So
right.
I'm a complete Luddite. I have this computer, Steve. I don't even own a television. I'm quite embarrassed really sometimes because people say, I saw something that's on this channel and I have to look up what that channel is because I don't know it. I'm just the guy that makes stuff and puts it out there and kind of has a love affair with the subjects. Hopefully everyone will make of it what they like, and I really hope that people do enjoy it.
Are you going to do a theater premiere?
I'd love to. We've got a possibility of doing something at Twickenham Studios shortly. I'm going to try and get it on Fact, which is the independent cinema in Liverpool, because
Okay.
that's where the Cavern Club's film came out as well. So I'm actually talking to them next week. And I'm hoping that it gets some kind of screening in the US. It would be really lovely to have a screening somewhere in the US or a couple of screenings in the US because I think the experience of going to see it, remember, I've seen it in Twickenham Film Studios on the big sort of sound stage. It really looks lovely. It looks really beautiful. So I hope that people will get a chance to see it on a bigger screen eventually down the line.
Okay. Simon, thank you. This has been illuminating, and I wish you all the best of luck with the film. Hopefully, let me know as this develops and if we can do more. You got a couple of big names here. You got Pete, you got Billy J, you got Lawrence Juber. What was involved with, how did they approach this project?
That's a really good question. So I knew a few of them anyway. And, I'd been friendly with Rogue. And so Pete was quite an easy one to do. Pete was very amiable to all of it, really. Lawrence, I kind of met a few times at the fest in America. I got on really well with him. They're such lovely people. He was very generous with his time. In fact, he came along and said, I'm on stage in about an hour and a half, so I've probably got about 40 minutes and then I have to think about going there. And about an hour and a half later, he looked at his watch and went, oh crap, I've got to be on stage in 5 minutes. So he was really generous with his time as well. Billy J, I've known for some time. Billy has also been involved with a project with the sculptor Andy Edwards, who's the person behind the waterfront statues in Liverpool and the Brian Epstein statue. We actually did something with Billy, which we haven't kind of, the actual piece is finished, but we filmed the whole thing of him sitting for his bust. So we did a bust of Billy, and I got to know Billy after doing the film in a way, and then I got to know him and his partner Rose, subsequently. And so they've been kind of involved with all sorts of things. We've done this really nice project where we've made a bust of Billy for the Liverpool Beatles Museum, which is lovely because, he's
Ah,
a person that should really be honored in stories
mm.
around the Liverpool music scene.
Are you going to maybe do a whole film on him?
I'd love to kind of, it's a question of how much we can do and where we can go with it. I mean, one of the things that we've been really trying to put him on the map in terms of recognition, in terms of having the statue and things made and the bust made for him.
That's wonderful that he's getting a bust.
Yeah, and it's there if people want to go to the Beatles Liverpool Museum in Matthew Street in Liverpool, and you go up to, I think it's the third floor, you'll see the bust and his story right there. So it's a good thing. But yeah, everyone's been incredibly generous with their time. Julia Baird was incredibly generous with her time. And she's subsequently been involved with pretty much everything I've done.
Right.
So she's a fantastic and wonderful person. And then the Cavern Club, everyone's in America, Bill Heckle over here, everyone's been incredibly generous with their time and effort to kind of make it happen. Can't
Well,
thank everyone enough.
I think, yeah, no, that's fantastic. And like I said, keep me informed on what's happening with it and, what, if there are any developments as far as that goes, then we'll pass the word along. So thank you very much, Simon.
Thanks so much.
Next, we have Ringo's press conference from September 9th. We attended this on Zoom, and it was featured in our last podcast that was video only, but we thought we'd include the audio here for those who didn't see it on YouTube. So here's Ringo, the All-Stars, and friends.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ringo, and this is the All-Star Band and Friends. And we're here tonight to answer questions of interest, and you can pick on any one of us, and it'll be answered. Thank you.
After this many years on the road, how do you keep it fresh? What are your touring priorities, and how have these needs changed? I'll start with you, Ringo.
I love to tour. We have to tour to get the pleasure of playing to people. I love playing live, and since 1989, I've been doing this, and it works. It just works. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Okay. For all of the All-Stars, each of you have had huge success on your own. What's the most unexpected joy about being in a band where you not only play your hits, but also back up others? Let's start here. Buck?
Well, to be able to play with these legends and all their great, wonderful songs, it's a dream come true for me. And to share the stage and play for people who love Ringo and all the songs, it's more than just music. It's almost spiritual.
Warren?
Yeah, it's not only legendary, but it's great to play with all these guys and to actually be a band and to play all these songs that you've loved, that you've grown up with. And it's just a thrill. It's like every year I'm as excited as when I first came in.
Luke?
This has been the best 13 years of my life. Thank you for having me. You started my musical life. It just popped open when I saw you. And all these years later, get to be your friend, be a part of this with all these great cats. I love you, man. Thank you for having me. Every day is a joy.
I feel the same. We are a band. This group of guys who all are in their own bands, including me. We got together and it worked. It just really worked. I love this band.
I'd have to say the respect that everyone comes to this band with for each other, and of course for Ringo and the great music. It's all about the great songs that Ringo pulls together. No one said no, and no one would say no. So the opportunity.
That was the first band,
Yeah.
and I said yes, and then what the hell have I done? I'd never put a band together, so I started just calling friends, who I knew. In my phone book, it was a book in those days. And nobody said no. It was so far out that I had to stop because we would have been 20 people on stage.
It almost was.
But it was a great band, and that's from that day I've loved the All-Stars. all the All-Stars.
If you would have told me in 1966 when I saw Ringo in Detroit that I'd be playing 5 feet away from him since 2008, I would never have believed it. But one of the great things about this band, too, is that we do our kind of our own take on all these great songs that everybody has. We kind of do it our way, which is super fun to do. Right, Hamish?
Absolutely. It's a blast. It's a great gig for me because I get to play bass most of the time, which is my favorite thing to do. When I'm playing my own music, I'm playing guitar and singing all the time. But it's nice to play bass and be in the engine room in between two kits of drums and just
It's a little Mustang.
doing this thing.
Mustang bass?
Yes.
That's pretty great.
Mustang bass and Ludwig drums.
The question is about the joy it gives you to not just play your song, but to play everyone else's.
Well, Ringo said nobody said no. That's the thing, that you get to play with Ringo. And he, that's it right there. If the call comes, you say yes. Because it goes right back to the dream of what you want to do, and then you get to do it, and you get to keep doing it. So it's brilliant, fantastic.
Great. This is for you, Ringo. Your new art show in Las Vegas marks your first since 2019 and the first to feature your original paintings. How does painting feed a different creative side of you compared to drumming or songwriting?
It's just something I love to do. And yeah, we do have this exhibition in Vegas. Well, I've got I've got one little room where I can throw paint around. A lot of it's spin art, and it's so abstract because you can't control it, really. You can make colors, that's all. And I enjoy painting. And lately, I've been doing spin art because I saw the guys on their computer, and they had this canvas, and they put paint on it, and then they attach it to a household drill. Of course, I didn't go that way. I've got a great machine that spins it round. And we started with 10 by 8s, and now we're on 8 by 10s. Feet. Biggies. And yeah, it's something else I do. I love it. And I do it at home.
Great. This is for all the band again, and I'm going to start with Colin. What are your first memories of ever playing Vegas, and what do you like about playing Vegas?
My first memory of playing Vegas, I think that we played Vegas with Men at Work, and it was just, it seemed ridiculous to me. It was just a place I'd never experienced before, but I liked playing it because it's close to home. You can nip home after you've played there.
Okay, yeah. My first memory of Vegas was that it took about 15 or 20 minutes to get to the Strip from the airport in a cab. Now you walk out and you're on it. It's very strange. The first time was 75, I think, 1975, and we got to pick our own opening acts after AWB had its first hit. So we had Jimmy Witherspoon playing, and it was just fabulous to see this guy work. It's a joy. It's great, but it's amazing the way Vegas has changed. It's so huge now. It's crazy.
My first time was 82, playing a big convention for an auto industry thing. They brought all these Los Angeles musicians there, and I couldn't believe I was playing in Vegas. And now to play at the Venetian with Ringo and the All-Star Band, you've got so many people from around the country. I'm coming to Vegas. I'm coming to Vegas. And we're there, and they come to us. What a great concept.
My first time was with Foreigner in 1981, and I remember it was hot as hell, and the high rollers got the best seats.
First time I played was in the 60s with the lads, and it was great. And then, years rolled by, and I put the All-Stars together, and we played Vegas. It used to drive me mad because there were like tables, they were eating dinner, or there's some old guy with 3 girls on the table, and it's like the last thing he wanted to listen to was the music. But now it's so great. It is Music City. I love it. And I went to Sphere, and it was fabulous.
I have family there, and I love Vegas. It's a great vibe, great audiences.
My first time in Vegas I was in Cher's band, her first band after she split with Sonny, her Vegas review at Caesar's Palace. So it kind of started at the top of Vegas, and I have since played many of the hotels there with various people like Olivia Newton-John and, of course, Ringo.
Late 90s with John at Mandalay Bay was one of my first times in Vegas. And since then, I've played many of the rooms there, including most of 2019 with Aerosmith. But to get to play with these guys at the Venetian again is a great experience. Like Bissonette said, the world comes to you to see the show. So that's really awesome.
Great. This one's for you, Ringo. You said your book, Beats and Threads, is out. How do you approach book writing versus songwriting, or how does collaborating to make them differ?
Gary put the book together, and we've talked over the last 20 years. He's a drum freak, and I thought it was a good idea. I mean, nothing gets started and then I talk about it. We talk about it before it starts, and I just loved that idea, and I loved even more that I've still got some of those clothes. It was far out because I thought I'd lost everything in the many moves. And there was this bag on the floor and it had the pepper suit and everything in it. It was far out. Anyway, so, I just thought it was a nice idea, Beats and Threads. And I got the chance to see, because they found them, these old pictures of me in those outfits. Loved it. So, if I say yes, I tend to love it.
And also for you, about your country record, you have a new country album in the works. What can you tell us about it? And does this signify a change in direction musically? Do you think we might see a tour supporting this?
I loved making the record, and T-Bone is great and musical, and he just knows his stuff. And it was very easy. He made it easy for me. And I've just finished my part in another country album. I love country music, so it was, there's no problem with it. I just get on with it. He wrote a lot of songs, and this one has a few. I've written with Bruce Sugar 2 songs on the next one, and we do a cover of a Carl Perkins song because T-Bone sort of likes the idea that my first recordings with the Beatles were Carl Perkins songs. I love Carl Perkins. I enjoy it. But all those pop rock records I made, I enjoyed making them. Just playing with other musicians and writing with, I used to write with a lot of different people. And it's just, it's just what I do. So anyway, next year, I believe we're coming out with another country album.
This is for everybody. How do you continue to maintain joy and a positive attitude given how challenging life can be? Do you have any advice for having that perspective through difficult times?
It's not like we don't have hard times, but playing gives us a different mood all the time. I love to play, and I know this band love to play, and we're playing with each other. It's like, you're hanging out in a good space. So I think we're blessed that we're playing that it centers the musical part of our brain and our hearts, and we do the best we can.
One of the greatest parts is looking out in the audience. You'll see somebody with a yellow submarine cut out and somebody in the pink pepper suit, and you give, this is a Ringo song, you give love, and they give love back. And that's so energizing.
Part of the way of keeping your sanity when you're touring is to have a routine, because it can be a grind. I mean, we have fun when we're on stage. That's the fun part, but we get paid to travel, And so I find that if I have a routine, it keeps me, it keeps me stable and level, and I don't go crazy.
I call the stage my emotional moat. that when I'm on stage performing, that the rest of the world can't bother me. And I think the most important thing about what we do is the gratitude we have that we can do it. And we play with these great people. The music is, I'm grateful for that.
It's a great way to channel whatever else is going on in the world. And there's a lot of negativity, there's a lot of division, there's a lot of that going on. So it's a way to counter that and spread a lot of love and a lot of joy, and to continue to do that, to counter the rest of what's going on in the world. It's also a great distraction from that, but it's a way of letting yourself know and the audiences know that it's not all that, it's still, as Ringo would say, peace and love is the way, and it has to be that way in the long term. So we get to do our part in sharing that with people.
Yeah, it's a super positive thing. I mean, it's great playing everybody's tunes and watching as the audience reacts to all these tunes. And it's a positive thing. I don't think anybody can walk out of there after the show without a smile on their face. It is a real upbeat, positive thing.
Yeah, if we're playing, we're even up on the downer songs.
Wow. Yeah, there is that. This is the greatest job on planet Earth. Everybody in the world would want to have our job. I mean, everything these guys said, 100%, but I'm very grateful every day to be able to do this at this level with all these great cats, all the wonderful audiences come out to see us wherever we play.
Thank you. This is for Ringo, and this is Beatle related. It's about the anthology coming out this fall. Have you seen episode 9? And what do you think about this new version of the anthology that's coming out?
I think the new version is great, and I haven't seen episode 9, so I can't tell you anything about it. So it's going to be a surprise to me, too.
Great. And coming from the UK, have you invited Barry Keoghan to any of the shows?
I haven't. He's very busy being me right now.
I think we've covered just about everything.
I think so, too. So I want to thank all you guys.
Thank you all very much.
Peace and love. Peace and love. Thank you.
Now here are some Beatles news briefs. There will be a lot of Beatle-related product coming for the holidays. You already know about the Lennon 1-to-1 and Sometime in New York City set coming out October 10th, the Wings book out November 4th, and the McCartney Wings compilation out November 7th. Now the Beatles have gotten into the act with a reissue and remix of the Beatles anthology audio November 21st, and an update of the anthology video to air on Disney Plus, with the original 8 parts and a new 9th one starting November 26th. The anthology book is also being reissued October 14th, but the book has the same number of pages as the original. Ringo was asked about the new addition to the video anthology, and he said he hadn't seen it, but he thinks it's going to be a surprise to me, too. Paul McCartney gave the world a preview of his 2025 Got Back tour on September 26th with the show in the very cozy 4,562-seat Santa Barbara Bowl. The concert, which was shorter than his usual shows, began with the surprising opener of the Beatles' Help, which he hadn't played in concert since 1990. Another rarely heard tune in the set was coming up, which he hadn't played in 10 years. McCartney began the tour officially on September 29th at Acrisure Arena in Thousand Palms, California. Again, opening the show with Help. Other songs in that set included Getting Better, Love Me Do, Here Today, and as usual, the Abbey Road medley to close out the show. Upcoming shows are in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Denver, Colorado, Des Moines, Iowa, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Tulsa, Oklahoma. Just this week came news about Rob Frith, who we talked with in show 91. He was the record store owner in Canada who discovered a tape of the Beatles in his store that proved to be a reel of the tracks that the Beatles had recorded for the failed Decca Records audition in 1962. Frith had said to us and others that if Paul McCartney wanted the tape, he'd be glad to hand it over to him free. Well, Rob got that chance over the weekend. The meeting was reported by John Mackey of the Vancouver Sun. His story said the tape was a copy of the original. We linked to the story on our Beatles News and Information page on Facebook. The article shows Rob holding photos he got signed by Paul. Congratulations, Rob.
Thanks very much for listening to our podcast today. If you enjoyed our program, we'd really appreciate a positive review at the place where you get your podcasts. Apple and Google love positive reviews, and it really helps us. If you don't already, please subscribe to our show so you'll get our newest shows right away. And if you have any suggestions for the show, please write to us at BeatlesNewsBriefs@gmail.com or catch us online on Facebook, Twitter, and Blue Sky. And please tell your friends about us. We appreciate you all for listening. Now, here again is Steve Marinucci.
And that's all for today. Our thanks to Simon Weitzman, John Mackey, and Ringo Starr for being a part of this podcast. Until next time, this is Steve Marinucci saying,
Be seeing you.
What a show! What a show! Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
One thing left to say. We'll see you next time.